Howdy, want to go over modernism with you a little bit. I'm doing this video on Wednesday, July 12th, June 12th. Getting ahead of myself there. It's June 12th. Uh, and hopefully you're reading through the lecture notes, reading A Rose for Emily. And it might get a little confusing. So kind of want to talk about just a little bit. But with the Italian futurists, what they're doing is, particularly at the turn of into the 1900s, they're seeing a radically different world with technology and movement and speed, and they're very excited about this. And they want to create a new art to reflect this this huge transformation into a technology-based world, and all the speed and excitement it represents. One of the leading Italian futurists is F.T. Marinetti. He wrote this Futurist Manifesto, just a fascinating document. We should all write our manifestos and tell the world what we're excited about. Um, if you can, I'm not going to read this whole thing to you, but just some of the language. We affirm that the world's magnificence has been enriched by a new beauty, the beauty of speed. We want to hymn the man at the wheel who hurls the lance of his spirit across the earth along the circle of its orbit. Um, right, we've got this new, exciting world, and we want our art to represent it. And if you kind of just Google Italian futurists, you see the art's very vibrant, very colorful, but it's not just going to be some landscape like you might get with the Impressionists. It's going to be something much different, a new art for a very new world. You can just see the excitement behind it, the movement, everything's in motion. Uh, the cities are exciting, technology is exciting. Just a very kind of a celebration of what humans are doing during this time. Um, and this movement within Italy, obviously spreads a little bit. But here, let me get the PowerPoint going. But this one's Battioni's Materia. That's his mother. And if you look at it for a second, you can kind of see her face up here. At the top, she's in a sitting position. You see these big hands, these worker hands, strong hands. She's seated, but we see all this movement around here, all this power around her. All these things are happening. Even when we're sitting down, things are happening around us. We're moving through space, and we're aware of this. This is Baccioni's unique forms of continuity in space. You see just a much different look at art and what people look like as they're in motion all the time, and also what art should be doing. Uh, you can kind of see as time goes by, as the world wars take place, some of this gets a little more monochromatic, a little more industrial looking. But the same idea here. Here are the ruins of the old world. They're fine and everything, but we got this fascinating new movement, this technology. So we get this airplane spiraling uh, above the ruins of the old world. Very still kind of exciting, interesting take on speed and movement and the modern world. Eventually, this kind of spawns into Cubism. Excuse me. Pablo Picasso being one of the leading cubists of the time. And this kind of fragmenting world with all this movement and all this newness and all this excitement. We're not going to get a straight look at a person. We're not just going to paint a portrait anymore. We're going to try and pull all these fragments together and make meaning out of it, and create a new art for this new world. And that's what you see Picasso doing here. Again, some of the earlier Cubist work uh, still got a lot of color to it. As it moves on, it tends to be a little more industrialized, a little more monochromatic. But we're not just going to paint some young woman playing a mandolin. We're going to try and see all these different things going on around here and within her. We're going to try and see the music happening in front of us. Very exciting, different way of looking at what art can do. With Duchamp's Nude Descending a Staircase, we look at it and we're like, what in the world is that? If you look at it long enough, you can kind of see the stairs down here at the bottom. You can see the banister here. But what he's trying to do is represent the entire descent down the staircase on a two-dimensional plane. So you got this three-dimensional action happening on a two-dimensional plane. And you get this very cubist effect of these different actions happening all at once. It's very interesting, but just to even understand what this artist is trying to do, you got to kind of understand some of the ideas of the time, right? And even then, you might still be looking at it going like, "What?" uh, but it's a very fascinating, interesting approach to art. This is one of Picasso's masterpieces, Guernica. Guernica was a small town in northern Spain that got bombed by the Nazis and the Italian fascists, uh, and during the Spanish Civil War. It's a long story there. Basically, the Nazis are trying new technology on these poor people. But you kind of see all the fragmentation, the violence, the violent effect it has, the horror of these people being bombed, these innocent people being bombed. The light kind of functions as kind of this eyeballs. Picasso kind of saying, "I know what y'all did, uh, and I'm going to show this." This is a huge painting. This is 25 feet by 11 feet. Picasso sending a very strong message in protest of what happened at this town in Spain. Um, but just to kind of know what the artist is trying to do, it takes a kind of a little more knowledge of the art of the time, right? That's kind of what we're getting at. Whoops, not what I want to click. With response number 5, you got that short lecture, kind of what I'm talking about now a little bit. With the response paper, you're going to have 3 different parts. One, I want you to make a bulleted list of 15 different entities that have a specific interpretation of you. Then I want you to kind of spend a paragraph discussing your list in terms of the modernism lecture and what I'm talking about here. Do you kind of feel that fragmentation in your life? Do you ever see yourself as an entire whole entity? Um, you may not after you make that list. But I just kind of want you to kind of just looking for your ideas there. And the last part, another paragraph of 75 words, just showing me you've read A Rose for Emily, responding to 1 or 2 of these prompts here. But do kind of notice that Faulkner in A Rose for Emily is doing this kind of cubist kind of technique. He's pulling the narrator's pulling in all these different little fragments from Emily's life and putting them together, or trying to. It's not chronologically told, right? You just kind of, as a reader, you're experiencing these little fragments of experience and trying to put it all together and make sense of it, what Emily's doing and what's happening in the story. But we also have a narrator or narrators. It depends on who's looking at it. May not always be reliable. Sometimes the narrator seems prone to gossip. Maybe Emily did this, or maybe she didn't, or maybe this happened, or maybe it didn't. And you're not going to get a direct look at Emily in particular, or the town either. Just all these little fragments coming together, and we make meaning out of it. And uh, if you're a creative writer, you got to read the story and just go like, "Wow, that's an amazing job Faulkner does in making this a readable short story." But for part 1 here, uh, the bulleted list. Don't overthink this. Just want you to start your document. I didn't title it there, did I? And just give me a list of 15 entities that have a interpretation of you. If you're married or have a partner, they have a particular interpretation of you. You may have a best friend that knows things about you your partner doesn't know. Your partner probably knows things about you your friend doesn't know, right? Your parents have particular interpretations of you that may or may not be accurate. They also know things about you you don't know, right? Maybe you asked your dad to play hide and seek with you, and you ran and hid in the closet, and he went back to watching his TV show. He may know why you're scared of the dark, but he may not want to tell you that story because it doesn't make him look very good, right? Actually, when a parent dies, they take a piece of you with them because there's things about you that only they knew, and you'll never gonna have that information. I'm not trying to depress people, but it's interesting phenomenon there. There's different versions of you. There's you out there on Snapchat. You may be friends with your grandma on Facebook, but you're probably not on Snapchat, where you do things maybe you don't want her to know about. But there's different versions of you everywhere, right? There's a job version of you. I don't go home and correct my wife's English. Or I did that once. um, right. I have this Mr. Fish persona I put on. When I go home, I take that off. I put on the dad persona. If the kids aren't there, I put on the husband persona. It's kind of a very fragmented kind of existence sometimes. uh, the government has interpretation of you. Northeast State does. Uh, if you come to Northeast State, hey, I have a problem. What's the first thing they ask you? What's your student ID number, right? Um, you're part of a process that we involve ourselves in. But you can keep going if you're a person of faith. God has an interpretation of you, and it may be different than yours, right? And the Bible talks about that quite a bit. Almost every religious book does, actually. Um, you have an interpretation of you that may or may not be accurate. Right? Sometimes we think we're doing good things and being a good person. All of a sudden, someone says, "You're being a real jerk there." You're like, "What? My interpretation of me isn't accurate." It's kind of interesting. And Freud kind of suggests this, like there's parts of your subconscious you don't even understand. When somebody cuts you off in traffic and you just hit that accelerator and try to murder them, where's that coming from? That's may not be the you think about or think of yourself as being, but there's all these things underneath that we can't control or struggle to control. But you can kind of see and just keep going on with this, and kind of the question, and one thing the prompt asks, well, how does this change over time? Your view of your mother and father and their view of you changes over time, right? Particularly as you mature. the you that existed 10 years ago is not the you that you are now, and you're probably aware that the you you're going to be 10 years from now is going to be much different than who you are right now. People just change over time, hopefully for the better. So you got all these things, all these different interpretations of you. You have different interpretations of yourself at different times. Uh, so which one's the real one? If I'm going to represent you, how am I going to do that in a painting or in a short story like A Rose for Emily? And that's kind of what I want you to kind of think about a little bit. It's kind of an interesting thing about we're very comfortable with this kind of sense of fragmentation in the modern world. Where a writer in the 1800s would be a little less receptive to. Um, don't freak out about it too much. Art's supposed to be kind of it's important, but just also have a little fun there. Uh, but who's the real Homer Simpson, right? We get these different looks at him, but this if you kind of see the entire world is kind of fragmented in this way, where we're kind of pulling these pieces together and trying to make meaning out of them. It has some profound implications and effects on our lives. But wanted to kind of go over that a little bit. This sense of fragmentation is something that's going to stay with us through existentialism, postmodernism. So kind of want to get you some kind of idea of what these artists and writers are getting at by looking at your own life a little bit. I'm going to stop there. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.